A solitary brass human statue stood solemnly guarding the main entrance to the Dunheim shuttle port. The figure stood with his fingers crossed on the tip of a large Nordic axe, looking out at the busy street and park path full of hovercraft that led to the door he was guarding. The people who lived here after the earthquake did not pay attention to this statue. Finally, there was a statue in front of every shuttle port. Why was this so special? Well, my sweet summer child, let me tell you the story of a man known only by his title. Berseria, or Meagle Mannen, was an empire built on the backs of slaves. They conquered and enslaved every planet they deemed necessary for their experiments. A brutal bombardment of biological weapons has turned the creatures into unintelligent, bloodthirsty beasts that claw and bite those they once called friends and family. However, like any other disease, there are precautions to be taken. By sheer coincidence, many individuals of many species are naturally immune to this disease and would make ideal slaves if they could survive the disease they contracted. Remember the desperation at the shuttle port as hundreds of sentient beings gathered there to take shelter in the hopes that the shuttle would slip past the slavers? I could hear the screams and yells of the infected as they approached through the thick plastic walls. I remember the man who burst through the door with an axe in his hand, covered in internal organs? I thought he came to kill us, but that's not the case. He marched to the empty reception desk and grabbed the intercom microphone before speaking. They know where we are. You can hear them coming, right? I can tell you're scared. I know you all want this to be a very bad dream, but this is reality. Listen to me as I look around the quiet, somber congregation. The human nodded slightly before speaking again. The shuttle gates are armored, and each can accommodate 30 people. It may sound like I'm telling you to lock yourself in a cage. Well, yes, but not for the reasons you might think. He hammered the bottom of his axe, and there was a dull thud as his handle hit the tile. Hold her back for as long as possible. Try to thin out the herd as much as possible until the shuttle arrives. Go to the nearest gate and lock both doors behind you in case someone passes me. There was a hesitation as the human put down the microphone, but then we stood up as one and entered the armored gated room between the landing pad and the shuttle port. What I heard and saw there was unforgettable. One of the shuttle port security guards pulled the bait out of the entrance so we could watch, but many did so out of morbid curiosity and wrapped a chain around anyone entering the handle of the shuttle port's swinging door, creating yet another hurdle. This is because the infected person who provided it jumps over it before turning to look at the street behind them. He reached up to his neck and ripped something out, wrapping it around his hand as he lifted his axe. The infected came in waves, a relentless wave of slavery, screaming corpses falling on top of the humans, momentarily obscuring the axe-wielding humans for the first time in minutes. We saw the head of this huge, curved axe only occasionally flashed, splitting flesh and bone with practiced and elegant ease. Then slowly a small crevice in the flooded body revealed the person's dire situation. They lost an eye, blood leaking from its eye socket, and their faces contorted in fiery anger. His clothes were torn, and one of his legs was trembling in the torn place. Many corpses were piling up around the humans, but the flood of infected people approached without end, and the humans began to fear. The axe swung clumsily, biting deeply, though not as deeply as before, as it cut down infected creatures one after another. Then the floodwaters engulfed him, and he disappeared from view as he watched the screaming masses slamming against the airport doors. As his emotions settled back into despair, he heard a sound, not of the screaming masses. A sound, a roar from the abyss of a swarm of writhing monsters. It's getting bigger and bigger. They felt the earth shake until they could swear. Half a dozen infected were thrown into the air, and as the humans came into view of the horde, a roar was heard from them, and the axe swung down with renewed force, severing 4 of the infected in one blow and killing the humans. Fought and fought, and fought some more, until the horde fell at the blows of human axes and fiery fury. The horde grew thinner and thinner until the axe head sank deep into the last infected head and tore it apart. People stood alone in the midst of the carnage, bodies kneeling around him. He stared into the distance, where it became silent. His arms darkened to a deep purple color, and his eyes desperately tried not to bleed as people slowly fell to their knees and spread his hands wide. He severed the axe in half, raised it above his head, level with the ground, then lowered it forward, still clutching it in his lifeless hands. As the human laid down the bunch of roses, a shuttle could be heard landing outside in the deafening silence. I carried the statue to my feet, but only after death did I understand why the person had done it. A diary found in the apartment bears his name, the first page containing a prayer to a long-forgotten god, now engraved on a board between the statue's legs. Has been done. Every father teaches me quickly and accurately. Apply my blade correctly and make my arm faster than anyone else. Who would try to destroy me? Grant me victory over my enemies, and when my death comes, my last thought will not be whether I did it, but my name will ring in the halls of Valhalla, and I will die on top of a pile of enemies and corpses.